Hello everyone. This time, I will tell a true story entitled The Silent Island of Hokkaido. But before that, like and subscribe first. In the far north of Japan, off the coast of Hokkaido, there was an island rarely spoken of, a place erased from most maps, known only through whispers and faded government documents. It was called Kuroshima, the Black Island. For decades, it had been abandoned, sealed off after a string of disappearances in the 1970s. Locals believed it to be cursed. Ferries no longer stopped there, even fishermen avoided its shores. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. Three friends, Mika, Ray, and Jun, were urban explorers from Tokyo who sought forgotten places and hidden histories. When they stumbled upon old records of Kuroshima and its mysterious shutdown, they knew they had found their next destination. They arrived at the island just before dusk. The sea was calm, but a strange tension hung in the air as their small boat touched the rotting dock. Moss-covered planks creaked under their feet. Around them, everything was still too still. "This is perfect," he whispered. "No one's been here in years." But Mika, holding her camera tightly, frowned. "It's too quiet." Then they heard it. A soft, shuffling sound from within the fog beyond the trees, like footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer. The friends froze, and the island exhaled. The sound grew louder, footsteps soft, deliberate, moved just beyond the tree line, obscured by the thick, low-lying fog that clung to the island like a second skin. Jun squinted into the mist. "Could be an animal," he muttered, trying to convince himself. But the footsteps were too steady, too human. Mika raised her camera, instinctively recording. The red light blinked in silence. Ray, still grinning nervously, whispered, "Hello? Is someone there?" No response. Then, without warning, the footsteps stopped. The sudden silence was worse. A cold breeze slipped through the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of something metallic, iron, maybe, or blood. The three friends exchanged glances. None of them wanted to admit it, but they all felt it. They were being watched. Jun took the lead. "Let's just get to the village ruins, get the shots, and leave before dark." They followed a narrow, overgrown trail leading inland. The trees grew denser, their branches twisting overhead like skeletal hands. The fog followed them, almost intelligent in how it clung to their ankles and muffled their footsteps. After 20 minutes of walking, they found it, an abandoned village. Dozens of wooden houses stood rotting in the gloom, roofs caved in, walls eaten by time and nature. A rusted bell tower leaned precariously in the center of the square, but it was empty. Near one of the houses, footprints, fresh, in the wet soil, bare feet, leading toward the largest house at the end of the path. And just as they noticed, the bell in the tower let out a soft, low chime on its own. Mika stepped back. "This place, it's not abandoned." And from inside the large house, a door creaked open. Narrated in third person, the creaking door sent a ripple of dread through the group. It opened slowly, too slowly, revealing only darkness beyond the threshold. No movement, no sound, just the open mouth of a house that felt like it was waiting. Jun instinctively raised his flashlight, its narrow beam cutting through the fog and landing on the doorway. Dust swirled in the light like ash. "I'm going in," he said, forcing his voice to stay steady. Mika grabbed his sleeve. "Wait, we should check the outside first. What if there's someone still living here?" Ray, unusually silent, pointed to the fresh footprints. "Someone is living here." Jun gently freed his arm and stepped toward the house. The wooden floor creaked beneath his weight. The air inside was stale, filled with the scent of damp wood and old decay. His light swept across a broken table, shattered glass, and torn photographs hanging loosely on the wall. Then he noticed something wrong. There was no echo. No sound bounced back. His breathing, the creaking wood, everything felt absorbed, smothered. Mika and Ray stepped in behind him, and the door, still open, suddenly slammed shut behind them. Mika screamed and spun around. It shut on its own. Jun ran to the door, yanking it, locked, no latch, no keyhole, but it wouldn't budge. Ray pounded on the wooden frame. "Hello? Anyone? We're not here to steal anything." Silence. Then they heard it, a faint humming from upstairs. A soft, tuneless hum, like a child singing to themselves in the dark. Mika whispered, "That's not possible." We saw no one. Jun's flashlight flickered. The humming stopped. Then, slow and heavy footsteps descended the staircase. The footsteps grew louder, creak, 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 as though someone was deliberately making sure each step was heard. Jun tightened his grip on the flashlight, its beam now trembling in his hand. Mika and Ray stood frozen behind him, their backs to the wall, eyes glued to the staircase. And then, she appeared. A little girl, no older than 10, stood at the base of the stairs. Her hair was long, wet, clinging to her face. Her white dress was torn and stained with mud, but it was her face that made them all take a step back. She had no eyes. Where they should have been were hollow, black voids, pits of empty darkness that seemed to pulse with something alive. Yet she was humming again, the same eerie melody as before. Jun's voice cracked. "Who are you?" The girl tilted her head. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Suddenly, the lights from the flashlight went out completely. Total darkness engulfed them. Mika screamed. Jun fumbled for his phone, trying to turn on its flashlight, but it wouldn't respond. Dead in the pitch-black silence, they could hear the girl's bare feet patter across the wooden floor. Ray murmured, "She's moving. She's coming toward us." Then something cold touched Mika's arm. She shrieked and scrambled backward, knocking over a shelf. Glass shattered. The light came back on for a split second, and they saw it. The girl was inches from Mika's face, but now her mouth was wide open, impossibly stretched, revealing rows of jagged yellow teeth, and she was screaming a silent, psychic scream that made blood rush to their ears and darkness cloud their vision. Then everything went black again. When Jun opened his eyes, they were no longer inside the house. They were outside, but the house was gone. Only trees stood where it had been, silent, ancient, and unmoving. Mika whispered in terror. It disappeared. The forest was dead silent. No chirping birds, no rustling leaves, just the sound of their breath, ragged and sharp in the damp air. Jun spun around, trying to find some trace of the house, but there was nothing, no path, no foundation, not even a broken plank of wood, just gnarled trees with trunks twisted like grasping hands, and thick fog settling at their feet. Ray murmured, "How is this possible? We were just inside." Kay, still trembling, whispered, "That girl," she screamed, "and now everything's changed." Jun tried to stay calm. "No, maybe we're in shock. Maybe we ran and didn't notice. Maybe." "No, Jun." Mika cut him off. "You saw her. The thing wasn't human." They stood in a circle, backs to each other now, surrounded by forest. Every shadow between the trees felt like it was watching them. And then they heard it, a bell, distant and soft, like the kind used in old temples. Ting, ting, ting. "Where's that coming from?" Ray asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jun pointed toward the sound, that way. They hesitated, every instinct telling them to run the opposite direction, but something about the bell called to them as they made their way through the forest. The fog thickened, and soon they stumbled into a narrow stone path, half buried by leaves. Moss-covered lanterns lined the edges. Barely visible through the mist, the bell grew louder. Then, through the fog, they saw it. A Shinto shrine, small, ancient, and decaying. The bell hung above its torii gate, swinging gently. Though there was no wind, they stepped closer. At the shrine's front, offerings had been placed, bowls of rotting rice, old dolls, coins blackened by time, and something else, a photo. Mika bent down to pick it up and gasped. The photo was of them, all 4 of them standing in front of the island's ferry station, taken just hours ago. But we never took this. Ray said a sudden gust of wind blew the photo from Mika's hand. And from inside the shrine came the sound of laughing children, but they all knew no child belonged here, not anymore. The laughter echoed high-pitched, playful, and yet completely wrong. Mika stumbled back from the shrine, her face pale. "Did you hear that? They're laughing." Jun approached the wooden door, hand hovering above the rotting frame. "It's coming from inside." Ray grabbed his arm. "Are you crazy? We shouldn't go near it." But something pulled at them, like the shrine wanted to be seen. The bell above the torii gate rang once more. Ting. Jun pushed the door open. Inside was dim, lit only by faint moonlight seeping through cracks in the roof. The air was thick with dust and incense long since burnt out. At the center of the room, small wooden statues were arranged in a circle, each one carved like a child, faces blank, mouths wide open in silent screams. Then they heard it again, laughter, louder now, circling them, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. Suddenly, Kay cried out. He was staring at one of the statues. It moved. Jun turned. One of the small wooden figures was no longer where it had been. Now, it sat directly in front of him, eyes hollow, head tilted. "Let's get out of here," Ray whispered, backing away, but the door slammed shut. The room turned freezing cold. Their breaths came out in clouds. The dolls began to twitch, first their fingers, then their heads, slowly turning to face the intruders. Mika screamed. And then, from the shadows behind the altar, a figure emerged, a little girl in a school uniform, her face covered by long, wet black hair. She pointed at them. "You don't belong here," her voice echoed as if spoken from deep inside a well. The dolls began to chatter, clacking teeth, wooden limbs clicking against the floor. Inching closer, Kay panicked. He lunged toward the door, trying to force it open. "Help me." They tumbled outside into the forest again, but the path was gone. And no more lanterns. No more shrine behind them. Only fog, and one sound remained. The bell, still ringing, still calling. The fog thickened around them, curling like smoke, swallowing every shape. More than a few steps away, the only sound, that bell. It didn't come from behind anymore. Now it echoed all around them, sometimes near, sometimes far. "We left the shrine," Jun whispered, "but it feels like we brought something with us." Ray turned around in circles. "Where is the path? Where's the trail we took earlier?" Kay was trembling, barely able to speak. "It's not fog. It's something else. It's watching us." Mika suddenly froze. From within the mist, a figure appeared. No, not one. Several. Children, pale, barefoot, dressed in school uniforms from different eras, standing silently between the trees. Their faces were blank, their mouths barely open as if mid-scream. But no sound came out. One of them took a step forward, and the bell rang louder. Ting. Jun grabbed Mika's hand. "Run." They sprinted through the forest, but the terrain was unfamiliar, rocks jutting out of nowhere, trees twisting unnaturally. No matter which way they turned, the fog remained. The bell followed. Ting. A clearing appeared. In the middle of it, an old, rusted bus stop. A sign, faded and cracked, read, "Shirahama Route Final Departure." An old bus sat waiting, headlights flickering dimly. No driver, no engine sound, just open doors and empty seats. "What is this?" Mika asked, horrified. There was no bus stop on the way here. Ray shook her head. "I'm not getting on that thing." But behind them, the bell rang again, much closer now. The children from the forest stepped into view, lining the tree line silently. Then one of them pointed to the bus. "You must go," the child whispered, lips barely moving. "Only the marked ones can return." "Marked?" Kay looked down. A red symbol, like a seal, glowed faintly on the backs of their hands. Jun checked his same mark. All four of them had it. This isn't a bus. It's a trap, Ray muttered. A decision had to be made. The bus doors creaked open wider. The bell rang for the last time that night. The four teens exchanged glances, their faces pale in the dim light of the forest behind them. The ghostly children stood still watching, waiting. The bus door hissed again. As if impatient, Jun took the first step. "We don't have a choice," he muttered. "It's either this or them." Mika hesitated, but then followed him. Kay stepped in after, trembling. Ray was the last, lingering at the threshold until one of the children took a step closer. She climbed aboard. The doors slammed shut. Immediately, the lights inside flickered to life dim. Yellow, sickly, the seats were cracked and stained. The windows fogged from the inside, making it impossible to see out. The driver's seat was empty, but the steering wheel began to turn by itself without warning. The bus jerked forward, creaking as it rolled deeper into the mist-shrouded woods. None of them spoke. The silence inside was suffocating. Outside the window, only shadows past trees twisted unnaturally, then fields of withered crops, then ruins of houses, burnt, blackened, crumbling. In one window, Jun thought he saw a face watching him, and then a whisper, "Why did you come?" Jun turned, heart pounding. "Did you hear that?" No one answered. Another whisper. Now from behind. "You were warned, but still you came." Suddenly, the lights went out, total darkness, and then the bus stopped. The doors creaked open with a groan. Beyond them, a town bathed in eerie blue light, silent, lifeless, empty, but familiar. "It's Argashima," Ray whispered, "but this isn't the real one." They stepped off the bus. The silence was too heavy. Not a single breeze, no crickets, no sound at all except one thing, footsteps coming from deep within the town, and then they saw them, their own shadows, moving on their own, walking ahead, leading them forward. The group stared in disbelief as their own shadows moved ahead of them, detached, sentient, gliding across the cobbled street of the ghostly version of Argashima. Ray whispered, "This is like a reflection of us." But twisted, Jun tried to reach out to his shadow. It turned to face him, but where its eyes should have been were only empty, glowing voids. A voice echoed from every direction, familiar yet warped. "You brought yourselves here. Because you are broken." The buildings began to morph. Wooden homes with paper windows became charred, smoldering ruins, one by one. The group saw versions of themselves in the windows, crying, screaming, bleeding. Kay dropped to her knees. "It's showing us what we fear most." A memory surfaced in Mika's mind, a secret she had buried, her sister's death, her own guilt. And there, in the distance, she saw it, her sister's corpse, standing under a tree, eyes wide open, whispering her name. Mika ran. "No, don't go alone," Ray shouted. But it was too late. The town split. The ground cracked open, creating narrow alleys and shifting corridors, buildings rearranged, like a maze being formed in real time. Now, they were all separated. Jun found himself in what looked like an abandoned school gym, his name echoing in distorted tones from the shadows. Kay stood in the middle of a blood-red rice field, where ghostly farmers worked with headless bodies. Ray wandered a looping street that led back to the same point, no matter which turn she took. And Mika stood before her sister's specter, only to realize it was not her sister. The thing smiled, its mouth stretching far too wide, and then it lunged from afar. A deep rumble began, a siren-like hum, growing louder, faster. The town was alive, and it was preparing something, a ritual, a sacrifice. The island roared to life. The deep, mechanical hum turned into a deafening pulse, like the beat of a massive heart buried beneath the earth. Each of the four survivors stood alone, facing their worst memories, reanimated as twisted spirits. Shadows lunged, illusions became tangible. Fear was no longer emotional, it was physical, clawing at their minds. But then, from somewhere unseen, a low chime echoed a bell, ancient and resonant. It vibrated through the bones of the island. Suddenly, Mika opened her eyes wide. The shrine. She gasped, each of them Jun, Rei, Kei, and Mika felt a pull, like something was guiding them, drawing them back together. Despite the maze-like streets, shifting fog, and ghostly traps, they each fought their way toward the old torii gate they had seen before. The island wasn't trying to kill them. It was trying to purge itself. I think we're part of the ritual, Rei said, not as victims, as witnesses. At the heart of the island stood the desecrated shrine. Inside, an ancient seal cracked but glowing faintly. It pulls with the same rhythm as the island. Mika approached and whispered her truth into the void. Her guilt, her pain, her regret, one by one. The others did the same, offering their fears, their darkest truths. The seal shuddered, and then split open, but instead of darkness spilling out, light poured forth, blinding, cleansing. The shadows screamed not in rage, but in release. They evaporated into mist, whispering thank yous as they vanished. The town around them returned to silence. The buildings faded into real ruins. The fog lifted, and then they were outside, on the beach, morning sun rising over the sea. No boat, no path, just the four of them, safe behind them. The island began to sink slowly into the ocean, as if it had finally completed its purpose. Rei turned to the others. We weren't meant to survive the island. Jun nodded, but we did, because we faced ourselves. Jun nodded, but we did, because we faced ourselves. They walked away, barefoot on the wet sand, the waves washing away their footprints. The island of Argashima was never seen again, but the four who returned, they never forgot the silence that screamed the loudest. This story is over. Thank you for watching until the end.